Beth Fitzpatrick is the farm manager at Frost Valley YMCA. She has worked there for 12 years, 2 on maintenance and 10 on the farm. During this time, she has supervised the day-to-day operations of their composting facility, and since moving to the farm, has implemented a composting program for the camp as well. Beth supervises all the manure management and composting for both the farm and horse programs, and use products on all 3-acre gardens and all of their hay fields. So, Beth, thank you so much for joining us. Are you with us right now?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Well, thank you again. Appreciate all the work that you all put in to put this presentation together, and I'll go ahead and pass it on to you.
All right. Thank you, guys, and welcome, everybody. As Danny said, I work at Frost Valley YMCA. We're up in the Catskill Mountains in New York, and we have been composting here for over 25 years. We compost all of our food waste, all of our manure from our horse and farm programs. We have 90 horses during the summer, and we have livestock year-round at the farm, so quite a volume of manure and quite a volume of food waste. But let's see here. So we are a 5,500 acre campus, and we serve 38,000 people annually from around the world. So that includes kids for camp. We have school programs, conferencing programs, everything just to get people outside and educated on the outdoors and have fun. So our resource management center was instituted in 1990. We were essentially looking into the green initiative and looking to save money on our waste management fees. Most of our municipal waste actually goes to Pennsylvania, so it's about a 2.5-hour trip for that, and any money we could save on that was amazing. So we do all in-house recycling and cardboard baling. Then we sell our cardboard. And the Resource Management Center also has a classroom attached to it. So the kids that come to camp here or school programs and things like that, they actually go down to the RMC, they get to see the compost process, and then we have a neat facility classroom where they can see that water bottles are turned into sweatshirts and what we use our compost for. And we also have a greenhouse, so it all goes up there. So in our dining hall, as I said, we're serving 38,000 people a year, which equates to 435,820 meals annually that we're serving. And our program instructors are really awesome. Every meal, they stand up and they give an introduction to the dining hall, talk about our composting procedures and what goes in what barrel, and we get to weigh it at the end of the meal so they see how much they're actually wasting. They try to get it down to 0 so there's no waste. And like things like banana peels or orange peels or chicken bones aren't included in that weigh-in. It's just basically food that was put on their plate that they didn't eat, just to make them a little more aware that if you take it, you should be eating it and we shouldn't just throw it in the trash. So at our sorting station, we always have a staff station there to fish the forks out, essentially. But they're explaining to the kids, what's compostable, what's not. All of our paper products we use here are compostable, though it takes a long time. They are compostable. And our liquid waste we put separate because the compost would just get too wet if we were adding that into there. And then just our regular trash ends up being milk cartons, plastics, that sort of stuff, non-recyclable plastics. We have a giant refrigerated room that we store this stuff in, and we generate enough food waste that it's in trash cans. On a daily basis, we're handling anywhere from 400 to 1,600 pounds of food waste. So our maintenance guys come up in a truck, they load it all on, they drive it down to the RMC and dump it in our mixer. But on a numbers-wise type of thing, it is a lot of food waste, but when you figure there's an average of 600 people here a day, it's not that bad. So once it goes down to the RMC, we dump it in a big agricultural mixer, which is
a YMCA camp.
A feed wagon, and with augers in it, and we mix it with wood chips, because the wood chips, obviously, they create the air pockets that are needed for all of our microorganisms to live. Essentially, if we put in let's say the trash cans are half full. If we put in 12 of them, we would put in 3 skid steer buckets of wood chips to mix with that, so it's nice and light and fluffy and pretty. And then we move it on to our bays. So we have a 3-bay system. They're forced air. There is a fan that runs through a perforated pipe, and the piles are aerated 3 times a day. And each day when we add to it, we're pushing it up in, so it's getting air that way as well. But as you can see in the pictures, you can see oranges and bones and everything else. We put everything in there, so there's no sorting that happens. It's whatever. And so there is plastics and things like that in there, but they just hang out in the wood chips, basically, and get used over and over and over again. The aerations on the piles, like I said, it's 3 times a day. It's about a 15-minute aeration that goes on in there, and that has seemed to work. When we're getting towards the end of a course on a pile, we may crank that up a little more just to dry the pile out some, because it goes through a trommel screen, so a dryer's better, I would say. But each bay, as it's filled, it'll hang out in there for 6 to 8 weeks. Summer camp will fill all 3 bays in a matter of 8 weeks, and then we'll end up going and screening it out and essentially taking things apart. It does break down relatively quickly in there by the time you go out to the screen. The only thing that's recognizable as food that I've ever seen is like a pineapple top or bagels. Bagels don't compost either. Screening. So as stated before, we have a trommel screen, and we'll just take the wood chip compost mixture, bring it out to the trommel screen, dump it in the hopper. It's a 1/4-inch screen, so all of the fine organic matter essentially will fall down through the screen, and then the wood chips will go out the other end. The wood chips will go back in the RMC. We use them for years and years and years. We end up bringing in more wood chips as they break down, but for the most part, we're not putting in a ton of new wood chips every year. There's a lot of lifespan on them. Excuse me. The material that falls through the screen isn't composted. So it was in there for 6 to 8 weeks, and now it's like just fine little stuff, but it's very hot and very, I wouldn't say stinky, but it's very aromatic in a good way, in a dirt kind of way. We'll take that and we will move it to our windrows. So our windrows are about 4 foot wide, 4 foot high, and 30 feet long. They out there are mixed with hay and horse manure from the horse program at a rate that I would say compost the horse manure, it's only really about 2 skid steer bucketfuls that are getting loaded into 1 truckload of manure, but there is a lot of hay in that, so that works for a lot of aeration. And these windrows are turned once a week. And occasionally we have to water them in the summer if it gets really dry, but for the most part they hold their moisture, and they will basically turn their way across the yard. It takes 6 to 9 months to get across the yard, but then once it's there, we have essentially a finished product that we use on all our gardens, in our greenhouse, landscape applications, and we spread on our pastures and hay fields. So on our gardens, the farm has a 3-acre garden, and with them, we're growing all the food for our farm program, which is pretty awesome. So all of the compost at the farm gets used there, plus some of the compost from main camp. As I touched on before, we have a classroom in our RMC, and it's a great space, a lot of examples of sustainability and recycling and things like that. Our farm and orchard gardens, the kids get to tend to the vegetables and harvest them, and we have berries and fruits and all sorts of things. And then we added this year, as part of our wellness initiative, a healthy teaching kitchen, which is a space for guests to take the produce that comes out of the garden and go up there and learn how to make things. They essentially take strawberries and make strawberry shortcake, or they take kale and make kale chips. Anything that really we feel like they're gonna be able to make at home, things that we know they could grow at home, and they can also turn into really awesome meals for themselves. So the system I set up at the farm is a four bay system. It's not forced air, it's a static pile. So all of the bedding that comes out of the barn goes in there, and all of our food waste from farm camp, which is about 150 pounds a day, the kids bring over and they get to dump on the pile and then shake the bedding over it. And so they will kind of live in that, and it depends on the season, but they'll go from one bay to another, we'll turn it, and then it'll sit in the last bay for however long it takes to turn into finished compost. And then we'll use that right out on the garden and stuff like that. So that's a really nice product. The downside of this system is that we had to put a roof over it because of water quality issue, but we then run into not enough moisture. So I spend quite a bit of time watering my big pile of manure. But it definitely is a great system. I would recommend it if you have any kind of livestock, because the bedding to food waste it's good proportions, and the system has worked really well. And this was put in, I believe, 5 years ago. And after sorting out some kinks, I've had really great luck with it. And that's pretty much all I have with what we do at Frost Valley. And my heart potato is my favorite picture. But if you do have any questions with what we're doing here at Frost Valley, like I said, we've been doing it for over 25 years. We have a couple different systems. We get really good product out of there. Absolutely contact me, contact anybody at Frost Valley. We're happy to talk about it. And with that, that's pretty much all I have. And I'll turn it back over to Danny.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much, Beth. It's really exciting, to see. We've just experienced two different case studies from camps on different sides of the United States, and how they're able to handle the food waste and other organic waste that they're able to manage and incorporate back into their system. And I also noticed that both camps pointed out educational components of that, and so that will be our next session that we come up. But let's go ahead and do another poll. We'll kind of move through this pretty quick, but and I think that this answer has actually been released. Let's see how many of you remember. How much do earthworms eat in a given day? A quarter their weight, a half their weight, 2 times their weight, or 5 times the weight. And yeah, it looks like everyone was paying attention during Carrie's presentation. Worms can eat up to a half of their weight per day, and you can run those numbers and understand that that's it's a lot of food waste. I think 1,000 worms would be about 3.5 pounds of waste